Just when we didn't think we could endure another chapter of drama for the year 2020, we get a whole new fight for a Supreme Court justice just before the election. Because the failed, misguided, and pointless impeachment against the president, the Speaker of the House tearing up the president's speech on national television during the State of the Union, a global pandemic unleashed on the world by the communist Chinese, a bitterly fought Democrat presidential primary, that wasn't enough. No, a week ago, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and now we're going to be going through weeks of battle over her replacement. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but if 2020 were a balloon ride, it would be the Hindenburg. If 2020 were a cruise ship, it would be the Titanic. And if 2020 were a haircut, it would be a mullet. And if 2020 were a report card, it would be Trey Corley's. Yeah, it would. And if 2020, okay, to be fair, if 2020 were a presidential campaign, it would be my presidential campaign from 2016. Yeah. Well, the media truly hates President Trump, and they're trying to spin the story that he absolutely should not nominate a Supreme Court justice before the election. Democrats are threatening to burn the country down if he does. And they point to the fact that in the last presidential election year, Republicans in the Senate didn't act on President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, who was nominated after the death of Justice Scalia. That's right, of course, but the obvious fact, when they say that, is that President Obama did, in fact, nominate someone in an election year, and every Democrat in the Senate and House argued that he could and that he should. By the way, one of the people who made the case that the president most certainly should make the nomination was, in fact, Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself, who said that it was the president's constitutional duty to do so, and that he didn't quit being president after year 3. But instead of the media reminding you of that, they point to comments made by Republicans that there should not be a replacement of a justice during a presidential election year. That's partly true. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell didn't attempt to stop President Obama's rightful power to make the nomination. He just used his power to not act on it. He even stipulated that it was in part because the presidency and Senate were held by different parties. But what the Democrats demanded to happen in 2016, they are now threatening had better not happen in 2020. Do you get that right there? Now, the real reason this is all messed up, and quite frankly, is something that the Democrats or the media will never tell you, is that in 2013, then Senator Harry Reid, the Democrat who was Senate Majority Leader, ended the filibuster rule on judicial appointments. And that meant that instead of requiring 60 votes to confirm a judge, a simple majority would do it. Many people, including a whole bunch in his own party, warned him that such a partisan power move would come back to bite the Democrats. But they pushed for it anyway. Now Mitch McConnell is using the very rules created by the Democrats. They created it. He's playing. Here's a word to those hollering about moving forward with the Supreme Court nominee. Be willing to live or die by the rules you create for others. Remember that story in the Old Testament? It's the story of a wicked government official named Haman, who built gallows designed for the hanging of Jewish leader Mordecai. And those gallows were ultimately used on Haman instead. The Democrats got what they wanted, but it turns out they don't want what they got. Now, you may never hear the real story. You may never hear the real story on national news, so I wanted you to know. And here's something to think about. If people will burn down a country because they don't get what they demand, rest assured, they will really feel empowered to burn it down if they do win. Wait, don't click that button. Well, unless it was the subscribe button, and then carry on. And while you're down there, hit that little notification bell too. Oh, and if you leave a like and a comment, I will personally give my dog Toby a treat.